Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an absolutely amazing day it is today. We are jam-packed. It's nice to see the DOJ back in action all across the board. We're going to break it down. Obviously, the big news on the day is James Comey has been indicted again. We've got the indictment here queued up. The DOJ just wrapped up a press briefing. We'll take a look at the charges and then take a look at the hurdle. Many people on the other side saying this is free speech. You can't prove intent. So we'll look at the U.S. Code. We'll also look at the most recent Supreme Court case that I think's pertinent on this matter. And we'll connect the dots before we see what Todd Blanche, the new acting AG, has to say about proving intent behind James Comey's new charges. The 8647 seashell debacle now coming back to bite him in the booty. So we'll break down the whole story. We do know who it is assigned to now. And we have the charging document that we'll take a look at, all before we jump into the raids that took place today in Minnesota, Little Somalia. We had the Learing Center, one amongst many, where search warrants were executed and they went into the buildings to identify more evidence of fraud. We know billions of dollars were stolen from the American people to go to certain constituencies there in Minneapolis and St. Paul and elsewhere. And so we'll take a look at exactly what went down today, a bunch of video footage and some other comments from the Homeland Security and the DOJ there. Then we're not even done. We'll turn our attention to Fauci's top advisor, a guy called David Morens. We haven't forgotten about the pandemic and all of the COVID criminality, but now he's been indicted for manipulating FOIA requests, and there are other co-conspirators who are all listed in the charging document. So we'll have to speculate on who those people may be, but we'll take a look at what is going on in that indictment and refresh our recollection on exactly who this guy is. And you remember back during the COVID era, people were doing these FOIA requests to go get copies of their emails and their other materials, and they were misspelling certain words, misspelling certain names, so that if you did a keyword search, it just simply would not show up there. Now they've been indicted, David Morens, and maybe many more to come on that one. So we are jammed today. We are wondering what Pam Bondi was even doing, because this is the DOJ that we like to see now in full swing. But let's make sure before we jump in that the tubes are working appropriately and that we are connected all across the fruited plains of the interwebs. And it looks good. The Learing records, they were stolen. They can't go recover anything because the records are gone. Yeah, all right. So we'll get into it. It looks like we are live and well, my friends. Hopefully your week is unfolding beautifully. Thanks for joining us as we're still on the road. We had a great day today. I'll tell you about that at the end. But we've got business to attend to this evening and afternoon. And so let's get right to it, starting now with James Comey. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted again. We all remember this seashell by the seashore post that he sent back last year around May, where on his Instagram account, you see here, James Comey was just walking along the beach. And he said, "Oh, what a curious little shell formation near the ocean, 8647, which of course means to eliminate, to kill, to eliminate and remove the president. 8647. Everybody knows what that means. He knows what it means because he's the former FBI director. And his little comment on this was, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Now, he ultimately deleted that afterwards. He's like, "I had no idea what it meant. I just thought it was just random numbers on the seashell and on the seashore." And people were clamoring for his indictment long time ago, and now it has come down the pike. You see, CNN was the first to break this one, saying Justice Department now indicts former FBI Director James Comey for a second time, and this is a little bit different. This is not in the Eastern District of Virginia, where we had Lindsay Halligan, who had to battle for her very survival and was kind of hung out to dry by Pam Bondi by not allowing her to have a second U.S. attorney or a second assistant U.S. attorney in the courtroom when she was getting the indictments against Comey for lying to Congress. But now this is a new set of charges, and they're already saying this is free speech. There's no intentionality behind this. And by the way, James Comey deleted it. He said in his deletion that he had no idea what this was for. You see, he deleted it saying that he was just an individual who had no idea there were any politics behind it. He said he assumed they were a political message in a new Instagram post. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. Ugh. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence, and so I took the post down, said James Comey. Well, we don't believe that. And we're going to have to talk a lot about intent and how intent can be proven in a criminal case, whether it is objective standard, whether it is the reasonable person standard. What would a reasonable person think when they saw something like this? Or is it a subjective standard? What did James Comey specifically think? Not a reasonable person who's kind of, outside in the ether. It's about Comey, and we're going to see what the DOJ has in terms of evidence against him. And so here's how it broke today. Clip courtesy of Andrew Colvett over on X. This is CNN breaking the news. We have the indictment queued up. We've got the judge who's assigned. We'll take a look at the U.S. code for which he was indicted, and we'll see what the DOJ just said about that all coming up. But here's how CNN broke it as it smashed through the interwebs this afternoon.
And the Department of Justice has indicted former FBI Director James Comey for a second time. Kristen Holmes is live at the White House with more. Kristen, we should let our viewers know for context, he was previously indicted in September of last year on federal charges of making false statements and obstruction of justice related to his testimony. Those charges were later dropped in part because the judge ruled that the interim U.S. attorney who brought them lacked authority to do so.
But now we're learning said Lindsay Halligan wasn't properly confirmed.
Sought charges against Comey again.
That's right, and that he was indicted a second time by the Justice Department. We do not know what these charges are. Just when it comes to what you were referring to, one of the things that we had heard from inside the White House, inside the Trump Justice Department, had been this idea that even though the judge said that he was throwing out the charges, that they could bring additional charges later because of the fact that it was all about that interim attorney, Lindsay Halligan. There was a belief inside of the Trump administration and inside the White House that they would be bringing charges again. And I can tell you from talking to people who are close to President Trump, this was somewhat of a priority for him. He wanted charges brought against James Comey. Obviously, the two of them have had an acrimonious relationship. He was the FBI director under President Trump. He has had nothing but animosity towards Comey. He obviously fired Comey. And this goes really to the heart of everything that we have been talking about, the fact that President Trump wants retribution.
Shut up, CNN. They can't help themselves. Gosh. All right. So they broke the news. They have all sorts of inside scoops from inside people who are at the FBI still. So they got the information first, which is why we shared that. It's not about retribution. It's about justice. OK, it's only retribution when Trump does it. When they indict the president 4 times and then unleash a civil lawsuit from a crazy lady called A. Jean Carroll and then try to throw him off the ballot, that's the justice system in action. But when Trump indicts somebody, or rather a grand jury indicts somebody, then that is political retribution. So you get the gist of it. They still can't help themselves. Absolutely ridiculous. But the case has now hit the dockets. We see it is United States versus Comey over in the Eastern District of North Carolina. It's now been assigned to a Bush-appointed judge. Her name is Louise W. Flanagan. And we got the charging document and a warrant requested, an arrest warrant issued, and a penalty sheet and all the things. The last time James Comey was, my understanding, not ultimately arrested, not booked in with a mugshot, but his attorneys just coordinated essentially a self-surrender and a notice and a promise to appear. We'll see if that happens in this matter. But now we see the charging document has in fact dropped. James Comey indictment now filed in open court today. United States of America versus James Bryan Comey, brought by a grand jury. So it's not Trump issuing retribution. The facts were presented to a grand jury. They made the decision to move forward with the case. Brought in the Eastern District of North Carolina, Eastern Division. They explain on or about May 15, 2025, coming up almost to the day 1 year ago. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, the defendant, James Comey, did knowingly and willfully make a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States, in that he publicly posted a photograph on the internet social media site called Instagram, which depicted seashells arranged in a pattern making out 8647. which a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to the President of the United States. And a huge portion of the country reasonably interpreted that exactly as it was. And we saw after the FBI ex-director, James Comey, published this, we've had a series of attacks on the president, including the most recent one that is occurring at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. All these people constantly saying, we need to take out the president because they've been brainwashed into thinking that he's a fascist, a pedophile, a murderer who just kills citizens on the streets, and the list goes on and on. So we'll take a look at this code. It's 18 U.S. Code, subsection 871, subsection A. That is count 1. So a threat to kill the president. Count 2. Same date, on or about May 15th, in the Eastern District of North Carolina, the defendant Comey knowingly and willfully did transmit in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to eliminate the president, Donald J. Trump, specifically by publicly posting a photograph on the internet social media site called Instagram, which again depicted seashells arranged in a pattern making out 8647, which a reasonable recipient, we're all reasonable recipients, who is familiar with the circumstances, would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to President Trump. 86 in common vernacular means to eliminate. In violation of 18 U.S. Code, subsection 875, we'll look at that one. So there's also a forfeiture notice saying upon conviction, and if he is convicted based on these charges, he shall forfeit any real property or property which constitutes or is derived from proceeds traceable to the said offense. And this might be related to his, I don't know if he's making a bunch of money or getting monetized on Instagram, but he was selling a book. So maybe that was a way to promote his book. Remember, he was also on with all of the late night hosts, Stephen Colbert and the rest of them, all brought him on. He's like, no, I had no idea. So it might have been a book sales type of media virality operation. So maybe that's what they want. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission cannot be located, been placed beyond the jurisdiction, if he offloaded those book sale funds overseas into a Swiss bank account or something, then we'll go see if we can get it. All of this coming from a grand jury foreperson who signed right here, name redacted, 4/28/2026, and brought by assistant U.S. attorney called Matthew R. Petraka. So it's a different U.S. attorney. It's not the U.S. attorney. It's an assistant U.S. attorney. So we're not going to run into the same Lindsey Halligan problem where we have somebody who is not a Senate confirmed U.S. attorney who is the only signer on the indictment that was brought. So that's all we got. And this is a normal indictment. We kind of were hoping for like a Jack Smith speaking indictment where he explained every single thing that went into the charges, including were there any, public webcams that were monitoring the beach? Anybody have a Ring camera facing out where James Comey was walking by and James Comey was the guy organizing these seashells by the seashore? Interesting. So we'll see what else comes down, but let's take a look at the charges and then break those down as well. What we see is the first code, 18 U.S. Code, section 871. Threats against the president. And we do have the First Amendment. You have a lot of protections. You can say a lot of things without getting criminally charged for them. But let's take a look how this one applies. So it was subsection subsection A. So we're in this paragraph right here saying whoever knowingly and willfully deposits for conveyance in the mail or for delivery to post office or anything else, or by any letter carrier, any letter, paper, writing, print, missive, document containing any threat, or for delivery to kidnap, inflict bodily harm upon the president or vice president-elect knowingly against the president shall be imprisoned under this title not more than 5 years or both. They define who the president is, or by any letter carrier. So I'm wondering if the defense will make an issue about that. This is not not in the mail or in the post office or any letter carrier, or whether this will apply under that. But that's what we've got, 871. So there it is, very short title saying if you're going to threaten to take the life or to inflict bodily harm upon the president or the vice president, knowingly or willfully otherwise, or there's the other section, or knowingly or willfully otherwise makes any such threat against the president. There it is. So it's not just by letter carrier or letter or mail. It's any other mechanism, any other such threat. Instagram, I would say, falls into this or category, so it doesn't need to be actually dropped in the mail. So negate that. Shall be imprisoned not more than 5 years, or fined or imprisoned not more than 5 years, or both. President-elect and vice president-elect mean what those mean, but we don't have to apply that subsection. So that's it. That's all we got. Pretty light statute there. For the other ones, interstate communication, that was under subsection C on that one. Saying here, whoever transmits in interstate or foreign commerce any communication containing any threat to kidnap any person or any threat to injure the person of another shall be fined or imprisoned or both, not more than 5 years. And, be nice to stack those on top of each other. But the judge who just got assigned is Louise Flanagan. And she was born in Richmond, Virginia. She went to law school, was a clerk for another judge in the Eastern District of North Carolina. And then she got appointed by the president called George W. Bush to where she's at right now. So George W. back in 2003, some of these Bush judges are very squirrely, very much aligned with the intelligence agencies. And so we'll see ultimately what happens with this case, but it is fresh out of the oven. And we've got some other documents to take a look at, including the request for an arrest warrant, which I have open right here. So also dropping today, they said, please issue an arrest warrant for the above named defendant and place same together with a certified copy of the indictment in the hands of the U.S. Marshal for service. And please return a certified copy of the indictment to this office. The warrants should be returnable before the U.S. magistrate judge. And so maybe this time they'll actually conduct an arrest and book him and get a mugshot, get a photo like they did not do last time. I believe last time we didn't get a lot of details on the mechanics, but they just kind of did a self-surrender. He said, I'll come in here, receive a copy of the indictment, sign a promise to appear. And he was released basically on his own recognizance at that time to present himself later for another appearance. So we'll see if that happens here or if we get any updates on this. But those are the documents that have now hit. That's all we see. That is on the docket. And your boy also is checking Pacer. You can see here is the official Pacer queue. Arrest warrant was issued by the clerk of the court for James Comey. We have a penalty sheet. It's not available to all of us. It's available just to the court. And that's it. So all of this is fresh out of the oven. Now, we also see that the case that I think is most on point on this, at least the most recent case, is from the Supreme Court of the United States. It's called Counterman versus Colorado. We had oral arguments on this thing back April 19th, 2023. We're asking, what is a threat? What is a true threat? And a true threat is actionable in criminal law. So here is the background on this case, and let's see if we can apply it to James Comey to see exactly how this may work for him. So here are the facts of the case. So we want to do a compare and contrast and see if it fits. This guy called Billy Raymond Counterman repeatedly contacted a person over Facebook, sending her creepy messages from numerous different accounts, even after she blocked them. A little bit of a stalker situation. Some of the messages implied that Counterman was watching her and saying that he wanted her to be eliminated or maybe 86th, without saying that language. She reported Counterman to law enforcement. They arrested him. He was charged with 1 count stalking, 1 count of another stalking, so credible threat, 1 count serious emotional distress and harassment. Before trial, they dismissed the credible threat for the prosecution claim. He claimed, the defendant, that the remaining charges to his Facebook messages were all free speech under the First Amendment. He said they were not true threats. I was not actually going to do anything to her. Trial court denied his motion to dismiss. Jury came, found him guilty of stalking for serious emotional distress. Colorado Court of Appeals affirmed his conviction. Okay, so this guy is making direct contact with the victim in the case. James Comey is not doing that exactly, although posting something as the former director, he knows that's going to get back to the president. So he's kind of communicating, maybe not directly, like he didn't send Trump a DM. Haha, Mr. President, 8647, haha, right? That's different than him just posting it for the whole world to see. But he's the ex-FBI director. He knows that his message is going to go right back to the president. He's in the middle of his book tour, and he wants to sell some books, show up on Colbert, where they can just kind of, rub each other off, and you get it, and have a conversation where he goes, I'm just so dumb. I just didn't know. How could I understand what 86 means? I only ran the FBI. So here's the question from the court, and here's how it went down. You can see we had in the final decision from the Supreme Court, a 7-2 decision. Thomas and Barrett were in the dissent. We'll break it down. The other 7, and this decision was written by Judge Kagan. Here's what they had to say about this. The question, of course, to establish that a statement is a true threat. So in this case, it's about this guy sending Facebook messages, but it's the Supreme Court. So they're laying down a general rule for all other cases that come down. What is a true threat? How does a statement become unprotected by the First Amendment? If it is a true threat, must the government show that the speaker subjectively knew? Okay, so in this case, James Comey knew or intended the threatening nature of the statement versus it's a different standard of evidence. What would a reasonable person, the objective observer that we call it in the law? So you think about it just as some person who's not in this case specifically, but what did Comey's message, how would it be received by a reasonable person? Okay, just put that in your mind. A reasonable person who is just one of us receiving this message, what would we think? Does the government have to prove that we would consider that a threatening message? Or do they have to go show that James Comey considered that to be subjectively, in his mind, a true threat or threatening in nature? Here's what they wrote. In a 7-2 decision, and this is 2023, so this one's also fresh by Supreme Court standards, they said to establish that a statement is a true threat unprotected by the First Amendment, the government must prove that the defendant, in this case Comey, had some subjective understanding of the statement's threatening nature. Okay, so it's not just us receiving it. I think objectively, you could say 86-47 means eliminate the president. There's really no other way to interpret that. It's why it went viral all over the place, because everyone knows what it means. Even if you're saying that's not what it means. Like there's this restaurant defense, like, oh, like an 86th in order, like they left, they don't want their hash browns. So 86th the order. That means to eliminate the order. Okay, we all get it. And then people are being cutesy about it and saying, well, I just mean it like to, remove from office. That's all I mean. The reason they're saying it is because they know there is a deeper meaning to it and they're just trying to be cute about it. But in this case, the Supreme Court says they have to show that the defendant had internally, that Comey had a subjective understanding of this based on a showing no more demanding than recklessness. So it's not even intentional. It's not even willful exactly. It's reckless, which is a lower standard. So it's like a careless disregard. Comey would have known this internally in his brain. He has a subjective understanding that a message will have a threatening nature to it. And he's doing it with a careless disregard for the consequences. Sounds like that might be something that we can hit. Justice Kagan authored the majority opinion. She wrote, while the First Amendment does protect freedom of speech, it does allow for restrictions of so-called true threats. A true threat is determined by the recipient's perception. So how do you get it? Not the speaker's intent. Okay. However, so that's the objective standard. So what would a reasonable person say if you said, hi, I'm going to kill you right now? Like, okay, well, that sounds like to me, you're going to come kill me right now. So that means, so objectively, that would hit the standard. But to prevent chilling of protected speech, there also must be a subjective mental state requirement. So you got to go find some evidence about the speaker, not only the recipient, but the speaker as well. This means that the speaker's understanding of the threat is crucial. So what did Comey think? A recklessness standard where a person consciously disregards a significant risk that their words might harm another is the appropriate measure for true threats. So was James Comey exercising a reckless disregard? Was he acting carelessly when he was posting this to a recklessness standard? I would say, yeah, he's the ex-FBI director. That is the appropriate measure for true threats because it strikes a balance between safeguarding free speech and addressing genuine threats. If it was only about the recipient of the speech, then you might have the recipient say, oh, yeah, I mean, I thought you said, I was going to like put you in a spaceship and send you to the moon. Like, I thought that meant that they were going to kill me. And so now I think that's a true threat and we should have that person indicted. They say, well, okay, well, you also have to go back. The person who said that I'm going to blast you to the moon, he was joking about that, right? That was kind of flippant, saying, oh, like, get out of here, get out of my life. So subjectively to that person, it's kind of balancing the two sides. In Counterman's case, the government used only an objective standard without considering Counterman's understanding of his statements as threatening. That was in violation of the requirements of the First Amendment. Sotomayor, she authored another opinion concurring in part and concurring in the judgment. Neil Gorsuch joined her in that. Sotomayor would not reach the question about recklessness, whether that is sufficient for true threats, and would leave that kind of analysis out. So, in other words, you could have an objective standard where the person receiving the threat to a reasonable person would think that was a threat. And also there would be some subjectivity in the speaker. Sotomayor would say, we don't need to go into the intentionality, to the mens rea, to the mindset of the speaker, whether it's willful, intentional, reckless, or negligent. Think about negligence, which is not the standard here. Negligence is even lower than recklessness. So we don't have to go there, they say. But Clarence Thomas authored another dissenting opinion. Amy Coney Barrett joined that one. Clarence, he criticized the majority for going back to New York Times versus Sullivan. He said, you don't even need to analyze that. You just need to go to the First Amendment as it was understood. Amy Coney also authored a dissenting opinion. She said that true threats do not have any First Amendment protection at all. And nearly every other category of unprotected speech may be restricted from using an objective standard, right? So Amy would have even made it more permissible to charge somebody with a threat like this. In other words, you don't have to get evidence into their brain about what their intentionality was behind their threat. But the standard is subjectivity. So you got an objective threat. I think many of us would say that is met already. The president certainly feels like that was met when you have an ex-FBI director saying, I want you 86th. To President Trump and to those of us who recognize what Comey was doing, that standard is met. Now, the other half of this is about Comey's subjective intent behind it. So he's going to play dumb, obviously. He's already doing that. I had no idea what it meant, even though he's the basically chief law enforcement officer of the United States and the FBI, and has seen a lot of gang slang and other police codes and listened to probably, rap music and all the other things. He listens to Beyonce. We know that. So that's the standard from the Supreme Court. And it seems like if it's a recklessness standard, it's not necessarily even intentionality. It's recklessness, careless disregard for what he was doing and whether he knew it. So it reminds me of that red button meme. It's either Comey posted on one button 8647 knowingly because he was he was threatening to kill the president, or on the other button, Comey is the dumbest ex-FBI director in the history of America, and he doesn't know anything about what that phrase means, and he was basically unqualified to be in that position entirely. And so he's going to have to press button number 2 and just play I'm an idiot this entire time, which is going to be hard for him because he has a massive ego and he's an author and he writes these novels and all the things. So the DOJ came out today. They had a press conference about this, wrapped up just minutes ago. Let's take a listen to it. Not a long one. We got Todd Blanche, Kash Patel, and the others all coming out to explain this new set of charges against the former FBI director. Here it is.
Good afternoon. Today, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned an indictment against James Comey on 2 counts. The first count is that on or about May 15th of last year, he knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years. So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them. For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden, another one that's scheduled to go to trial this summer, another one indicted, an individual was indicted for threatening Tom Homan. I say that to say that while this case is unique and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant, his alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate and that we will always investigate and regularly prosecute.
Not retribution.
I want to take a moment to thank the hardworking members of the FBI who investigated this case over the past 11 months or so, the United States Secret Service, who also assisted in this investigation, and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina, led by United States Attorney Ellis Boyle, who's standing to my right. This was an investigation that remains ongoing. That's been ongoing for about a year, and that's all we're going to say about it today. I will let the U.S. Attorney Boyle speak now, and then after that, Director Patel. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Earlier today, a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned a true bill indicting Mr. James Comey with committing 2 felonies. Count 1, he knowingly and willfully made a threat to kill and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 871A. Count 2, he knowingly and willfully transmitted in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill President Trump in violation of 18 U.S.C. 875C. Mr. Comey will be given every form of due process all citizens are entitled to receive, to include a trial by a jury of his peers. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, it doesn't matter who you are. We take all threat cases seriously and prosecute anyone who violates federal law, regardless of title or status. Thank you.
Thank you, W. Cash.
Thank you. As you heard from the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney, former FBI Director James Comey has now been indicted for 2 felony counts. While many of you may read this indictment and view this matter as a simple investigation, it is the farthest thing from that. Every single investigation this FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice undertake, especially those that involve the threats to harm or hurt or even kill individuals, whether they hold public office or civilians in our country, are met with the same measure of investigative prowess and tools and personnel in partnership with the Department of Justice as anyone else. As the U.S. Attorney indicated, James Comey will be afforded every matter of due process under the United States Constitution. And as the Attorney General indicated, this has been a case that's been investigated over the past 9, 10, 11 months. These cases take time. Our investigators work methodically. They are career agents, career prosecutors who work these matters. They call the balls and strikes in the field as they see fit pursuant to the facts of the case and the law. They took that information and made a presentment to a grand jury, a jury of peers in the district in which the alleged crime took place. And that grand jury spoke, and that grand jury returned a 2-count indictment against James Comey. James Comey allegedly threatened the life of the President of the United States. And as you all now know, shortly after posting that threat, he deleted that threat.
Because he knew.
And then issued an apology. All of that information was presented to the grand jury. And Mr. Comey will have his day in court and his ability to speak to a jury of his peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Cash.
Thank you. We'll just take a couple of questions.
Mr. Attorney General, the Justice Department in this filing today also issued an arrest warrant for Mr. Comey. Is it your belief that that he is a continued public threat? And is there a request also for detention that you anticipate will be made in this case?
So the Department of Justice does not issue arrest warrants, grand juries do. And so the grand jury returned an indictment and arrest warrant. I expect that there will be communication.
What the heck just happened? It just went dead.
Like hundreds of others do every year, there will be some sort of arraignment set by the judge or assigned to the magistrate judge, and when that happens, you'll know about it.
But in this is being handled differently from the last time he was indicted. That's my reference. In this case, the department requested an arrest warrant, right?
Well, I don't think that it's public or clear what the department requested. The grand jury issued an arrest warrant. Go ahead. Yes.
Sir, how will you prove intent when, as the director had acknowledged, Mr. Comey said he did not associate 86 with doing harm, and he took it down promptly, said it was political speech, not an intent to harm the president?
Well, it's not. This case was indicted today. This conduct occurred about a year ago, May 15th of last year. There's been a tremendous amount of investigation. And how do you prove intent in any case? You prove intent with witnesses, with documents, with the defendant himself to the extent it's appropriate. And that's how we'll improve intent in this case. And so I think that talking about what Mr. Comey will or will not do if there's a trial, when there's a trial, it's very premature for me to do that today.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that. Pause there. We have perhaps witnesses who saw what happened on the beach that day. Maybe other people were sitting out on their beach chairs watching James Comey walk by, and the Secret Service went and investigated this after the fact. And they talked to other neighbors or other people in this location, and they said, "Did you see it?" They said, "Yeah. He was over there building sandcastles and doing weird manipulations with seashells." And they say, yeah, he wrote those. He didn't just walk across it and find it on the ground. Maybe he created those. Maybe we'll learn more about that. I think we'll ultimately have expert witnesses if this case goes to trial, and it very well may, if we don't get a judge who tries to dismiss it before it even reaches the merits. Maybe another expert witness to come in and say, yeah, the FBI clearly knows what 86 means because it's in our trainings, or it's in gang vernacular, or we've got other intelligence documents that we send around to different agencies, warning other agencies that we intercepted a message that somebody's going to get 86th. And we alert other law enforcement and police departments about a threat based on that language. So in other words, Comey knew or should have known exactly what that meant before he posted this. So it would be careless disregard. And let's not also forget that the FBI is now under control of Patel. You see him right there. So maybe they've even got emails from James Comey that are internal documents where he used this language, right? There's emails going back and forth. A lot of those emails are probably pretty bland. We're all looking for the smoking gun emails about the setup on the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, which launched the entire Crossfire Hurricane scandal and all the things. And that's, stuff that is juicy. But what about just everyday daily emails? Comey gets the daily briefing from somebody. It says, yeah, gang, the Crips and the Bloods are out there 86ing each other over there on the West Side. So he knows about this, right? He's gotten information about this. So him playing stupid might just be verifiably false because his own internal communications and correspondence with other people articulate each of those things. Hopefully we've got a lot of that evidence that is now percolating throughout the DOJ's case.
General Blanch, I wanted to ask you a quick question about, there's a number of other different types of conduct Comey has been accused of over the past. One of them is abuse of FISA warrants. I wanted to ask if there's anything that we could talk about today in regards to that, but on a separate matter, if I may ask any more updates about the ballistics forensic analysis with the shooting that happened over the weekend.
So on the first question, no, there's nothing else to report about any investigations or anything involving Mr. Comey except the indictment that was returned today by the grand jury. I don't have anything further to talk about with the ballistics that are still being analyzed. And I said it yesterday, and every law enforcement member who is speaking on this issue is saying the same thing as they should, which is that this is an ongoing investigation with really, really smart experts trying to understand what happened in that shooting and where the bullets went and ended up and where the bullets came from. And once that is at a place where we can definitively say, to the extent we can definitively say, we will let you know.
Director Comey posted this almost a year ago. Why bring this case now? Did you always feel like this was a strong prosecution, or did something change recently?
This investigation just didn't come now. It's the result of a lot of work by law enforcement over the past year. We don't time when we bring cases around anything other than when the investigation is at a place where we should go to the grand jury, and that's exactly what we did in this case as well.
As a former FBI director, you may not agree with what he did. Should he be able to turn himself in as a former FBI director? He's not a flight risk.
Yes, he is.
I didn't say he can't turn himself in.
So he's not under arrest right now, and he may be able to work
I don't
out
know
something.
whether he's under arrest right now. I'm here talking to you. The grand jury issued an arrest warrant.
worried.
I think that the way that this happens is different in every case. It's fact intensive. It depends on.
Hey, drag his ass in there, okay? They made Trump come down to get booked with Big Fanny right next door watching the whole thing, get a mugshot. They said that maybe Trump was a flight risk and that he would abscond. And same thing for senators and other people who were all a part of the J6 insurrection. Ridiculous. James Comey is no different than the rest of them. In fact, he's much worse. Many of them were completely innocent, the president himself included. So stop with the whining these people. Is he going to get a mugshot? Are you going to put him in handcuffs? Answer, yes. Treat him like every other criminal defendant.
You're right, who the defendant is. It depends on whether he has counsel. It depends on what the judge wants done. And so I don't know when the judge will schedule an initial arraignment. If that will be scheduled by the magistrate or the district court judge, I am sure. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or if it's just something that will come up in the next coming days. You'll know when it happens. As far as what Mr. Comey does between now and then, I'm going to leave that up to the line prosecutors in the Eastern District of North Carolina, the FBI agents, and the work that they're doing.
Raid his house at 2 a.m, just like Roger Stone and the rest of them. He is a former FBI director. He's got a lot of power still. He's got a lot of communication capability with a lot of people still inside the Bureau. If anybody could escape, it's him. They could just open up doors for him and, enter the secret codes like Jason Bourne him out of the country. So hopefully they're surrounding his house right now.
Why, Director Patel, maybe you said that it's a complicated thing. A lot of people might think it's an easy case. Why did it take so long? I know that you guys chose to go with this now, but to the layman just looking at this case, or layperson looking at the case,
it was an
Instagram post. He apologized. Why did it take so long?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details of the investigation itself, but a lot of these cases, you could look at when the threats were made and when charges are brought. They're not easy cases. And so we have to, there's a communication that's sent in allegedly in this case. And so that means that we have to look at devices. Mr. Comey is a lawyer. He has lawyers. So to the extent that we're looking at materials that are potentially privileged, we have to get a wall, set up a wall and let totally independent lawyers look at those. And so that doesn't happen overnight or quickly. And the statute of limitations of this is 5 years. We brought it in under 1 year. So that's really where we're at.
It's clear that you don't want to talk specifics today. But to the American public, can you at least give us a sense of whether you have hard evidence or evidence that shows that Mr. Comey intended for President Trump to be harmed?
Already answered that one.
For critics who say, where does free speech end and an actual threat of violence begin?
I don't know what critics say that, especially today, but it's not a very difficult line to look at, and it's not, in my mind, a difficult line for one to cross over one way or the other. You are not allowed to threaten the President of the United States of America. That's not my decision. That's Congress's decision in a statute that they passed that we charge multiple times a year. And so whether there is a defense, as you just described, Maybe there is, but the government will have evidence. I am not going to talk about the evidence that we have. That's unfair to him. It's unfair to the prosecutors, but it's enough to say that the grand jury returned an indictment. I'm just take one more question.
Nice.
Thank you, sir. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. Should we expect more indictments of this sort? For example, in 2020, Gretchen Whitmer did a TV hit with 8645 on her desk in the background. Is that the kind of thing you would pursue? And then just really quickly, should Comey expect to face more charges for his role in the Russia collusion investigations?
I'm not going to comment on other investigations involving Mr. Comey. He was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia. That was dismissed on procedural grounds because of the judge's finding regarding the U.S. attorney.
They're appealing that.
So that case is under appeal. As far as other investigations that are happening, it would not be appropriate or fair for me to comment on that time. As far as other incidents of threats against the President of the United States, those will be investigated. Every case is different. The facts are different. Who makes the threat matters. What the threat says matters. You're right. The question about intent matters, and we have to prove that. That's something that's our job, and that's something that prosecutors will have to do in front of a jury at the right time. But you cannot compare. It's not fair to the American people. It's not fair to the defendant. And it's certainly not fair to the prosecutors to compare, well, if you did it here, why didn't you do it there? Every case is different, but there's one thing that will never be different, which is that you cannot threaten to kill the President of the United States.
Period.
Full stop. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Did President Trump's message to Pam Bondi saying that Comey was guilty is valid?
All right. So those poor reporters, they had their whole week ruined. Oh my goodness. Every one of them. He apologized. He took it down. How are you going to prove his intent? Because he posted the picture on there that said 8647, and he's not some random Joe Schmo, like some grandma walking down the beach, like, what's going on here? That's seashells, and post a picture. It's the ex-FBI director, guys. So how about you ask some better questions once you get over your little temper tantrum that one of your besties, who was responsible for trying to take out the man you hate called President Trump, just got indicted by a grand jury. And I'm curious now what other evidence they've got. Maybe they went and got those search warrants for his cell phone or some other information. Maybe they subpoenaed Instagram and got into those DMs. Very curious. And we'll see what else he was saying about this. Of course, his public-facing apology and his idiocy, which is all you can call it. I had no idea what it meant. If you didn't know what it meant, why'd you post it? You presumed it was political because it had 47 in there. You're the ex-FBI director, so you got to think, well, what does 86 to 47 mean? Can't mean anything good. And he posted anyways. So he's going to have a tough time between the two buttons. Either James Comey made a true threat towards the president, or he's the dumbest man in America who was posting things he has no idea about. And he's going to have to eat that. And the truth is somewhere maybe in between. But the trial is now set. The trial date is not set, but we're on the path towards a trial. We've got the indictment that just landed. We'll ultimately see whether he's arrested. I have my doubts about it. That would just be too enjoyable for us. And they always, of course, have a little bit of professional courtesy when it comes to their own. Prosecutors, judges, police officers, blue code of silence, prosecutorial professional courtesy. We see it a lot. So we'll see what ultimately happens with James Comey. But the indictment has now come down. And remember, journos out there, no one's above the law. You told us this repeatedly. He did this, I think, intentionally, knowing what it was. He wanted to pump up his book sales. But we're going to keep our eye on this one. As soon as the docket gets a little bit more updated, or as soon as James Comey's in handcuffs, we'll have the latest updates here. Thank you for joining us and subscribing to our channel as we keep our eye on this one. All right, now we're not done yet, baby. We're just warming up, just kicking it into third gear. We've got big updates out of Minnesota. Raids unleashed across Minnesota. The little Somaliland fraud center now facing justice. Homeland Security posted this one today saying, investigating rampant fraud all over the place. Along with our law enforcement partners, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, executed criminal search warrants in Minneapolis relating to the rampant fraud of American taxpayer dollars. One of those places was the Learing Center. Unfortunately, as we know, somebody else already broke in there and came in through, I guess, the ceiling down the wall and stole all their records. So not sure they're going to find much there, but we'll see. Homeland will continue working to deliver answers to the American people on how their taxpayer dollars were abused. And we've got a roundup here. There were a bunch of different locations that were searched and seized. Dustin Grage, who is in Minnesota, I believe, and he's got all of the inside scoop over there. The Minnesota guy with the receipts is a good quote for him. That's exactly who he is. He said, here are 16 of the 22 confirmed locations from today's raids. And the big one right at the top, the Quality Learing Center, which apparently is where Ilhan Omar got her understanding of the total number of world wars that exist in America. We'll come back to this clip that's going viral, where she doesn't even know what world war she's referencing because there's about a dozen of them, apparently, according to her. So Dustin Grage explains, we have Quality Learing Center, Global Star Therapy, Empower Skill Academy, Aspen Associates, 2 of them, Mendota Autism, Baby Halamo Childcare, and the rest of them. Here's another Metro Learning Center, I'm sure. They got the N in on that one, so somebody had a proofread of that, or they just looked at the little squiggly line under their Word document. The Original Child Care Center, Mini Child Care, Fahie Child Care. We're getting ripped off, man. Nick Shirley visited multiple locations from the list. Here's the Quality Learing Center. They put the N back in there. They're like, oh, we're going to jail because we can't even spell. And many of them got raided all day today. And so we've got some clips of that. We don't have any charges or anything that has come down, but this is the precondition to that set of charges. You get the search warrant, go get the evidence, investigate the evidence, then present it to a grand jury, and then the indictments hopefully are coming soon. So here is what Homeland Security shared for us, courtesy of Fox 9, earlier this morning, right around lunchtime.
Breaking news this morning as federal agents are conducting several search warrants across the Twin Cities.
Yeah, we're going to go out live to our Bill Keller, who is following this closely for us this morning. He's in Minneapolis with the very latest. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, guys. Well, this has been developing for the past several hours. Unlike some of these high-risk warrants, this seems to be a very methodical investigation that they are doing. We're going to give you an idea of what's going on. They're inside there. We saw our first look at a couple of tactical SWAT, or I should say FBI agents, Homeland Security. They're inside that building right now. This is the Somali Senior Center. We're in the West Phillips neighborhood. There's also a child care center here, so we're unsure which or both of these businesses is involved. Now, this is one of nearly 24 spots where we are told that federal agents are stopping today. According to the FBI and Homeland Security investigations, agents are executing 22 court-ordered warrants across the metro area. We're told this is a federal fraud investigation, largely into some Somali-owned businesses. They wanted to be clear this is not immigration related, although the details of the investigation are still unclear. You're getting a look at some agents across the parking lot there. Most of these vehicles all unmarked. Again, this is not a big high-risk thing where you see the SWAT type of stuff. According to Special Agent Matt Vogel, federal, state, and local law enforcement are also doing this as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into what they described as, quote, the rampant fraud of taxpayer dollars. Now, we're well familiar with some of the fraud cases that, like Feeding Our Future, that's been going on for years.
They have been just getting fat and rich off of all of us. Bill Malugin also was confirming this. He said DOJ does confirm to Fox News FBI and Homeland agents are currently raiding 20 plus locations, and I'm sure they had a bad day over there. Sources tell Fox that the locations are largely Somali-linked businesses, including the infamous Quality Learing Center. He added the N back in for them. I'm told those are court-approved search warrants being served. They're tied to fraud, not immigration. Fox is told 22 search warrants in total executed in Minnesota this morning. DOJ spokesperson said today, the FBI with federal, state, and local law enforcement is involved in court-authorized law enforcement activity as part of an ongoing fraud investigation. And their statement from Homeland is confirming the same. In cooperation with our partners, we executed criminal search warrants in Minneapolis, all related to the rampant fraud of U.S. taxpayer dollars. And several posts from them. Here is how Fox News reported on this earlier today.
Large-scale raids targeting federal fraud currently underway. Federal agents seen leaving the Quality Learning Center. And Brooke Taylor has more on that and what they're looking for. Brooke, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Yeah, we have had a photographer there at the daycare since this morning, capturing video of those federal agents just going in and out of the building, collecting evidence as part of the DOJ's fraud investigation in Minnesota. Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal agents are raiding about 22 businesses across Minneapolis this morning, and sources say many of them are tied to Somali-owned operations. All of this comes after that viral YouTube video from Nick Shirley. It was back in December. In that video, he visited different child care centers, and you'll remember they were either closed or there were just no children inside, despite receiving state child care funding. Now, the location that you're looking at right now, it's the Quality Learning Center. This is the daycare. It went viral. It blew up on social media because of a sign outside with learning that was literally misspelled.
Yeah, it's the Learing Center. They can replace it with an N. We all know what it is. You can't change your identity. You can't trans yourself up into a learning center. We all know you're the Learing Center. So here, Tim Walz came out today, and he was essentially taking credit for this. I think they're all in panic level 10. He said, you know, today's raids by state and federal law enforcement happened because our state agencies caught irregular behavior and we reported it. That's how the system is supposed to work. And our agencies will keep at it as long as there are fraudsters around to put behind bars. He said, if you commit fraud in Minnesota, you're going to get caught. No, you're not. You guys literally enabled this. We read through internal reports from Minneapolis here months ago and Minnesota, where they brought this to their attention many times over. Tim Walz is responsible for the state budget. So they presented the budget to him, and then he paid out to them and got reimbursed by us and the feds. And that's exactly what we saw today. So he's like celebrating this. We catch criminals when state and federal agencies share information. Joint investigations work, and securing justice depends on it. Kash Patel didn't take that for a minute. He said, come again? What? This FBI and DOJ, with our Homeland partners, drafted and executed every single search warrant today there, Timmy. But go ahead and take credit for our work while we smoke out the fraud plaguing Minnesota under your governorship. And I just saw another one from Mark Wayne Mullen as well. Let me see if I bookmarked that one. Yeah, Mark Wayne said the same thing. He said, hey, Timbo, you have zero credibility on this issue. Governor Tim Walz, you have willingly ignored and downplayed the rampant fraud and abuse in Minnesota. This crackdown on fraud has come thanks to the leadership of President Trump. We will hold those who steal from Americans accountable. And so you can try to take credit, but we all know you're the beneficiary of this all. You, in fact, changed the entire state into a Somalian flag because that's how much you love these people. Now, the city of Minneapolis, they came back down and they said, hey, we're not involved with any of this. So, Tim, your own city of Minneapolis says they had nothing to do with it there, bucko. The city of Minneapolis is not involved in the federal operations being reported around Minnesota today. And as of 9:30 a.m., Minneapolis PD has not been asked to assist with the execution of the federal warrants. Because, again, we heard from Minneapolis PD back during the anti-ICE insurgency, the insurrection, where they organized literal databases of federal agents' vehicles and then conducted operations to obstruct and impede the enforcement of federal immigration law. Some people might call that an insurrection. If it was going the other way, they would be arrested and rounded up by the tens of thousands or hundreds and hundreds. But in this case, in Minneapolis, it's just kind of like, well, it's our job to protect the Somalians. We understand that federal actions may spark fear. Oh, no. And we will continue to marshal city resources to help the community in the aftermath of Operation Metro Surge. Okay, so again, another insurgent city that is enabling fraud and conducting anti-federal operation obstruction endeavors to prevent the operation of the law from going into effect. That's Minneapolis. Now, while all this is going on, we also see that Ilhan Omar is trying to get herself and her husband out of the blast zone as quickly as possible. So she and her husband suddenly closed their winery. Oh, we already read before how she had a multi-million-dollar financial report that she submitted to Congress in her financial disclosures and then had to correct that. She said, actually, We're broke. Those millions of dollars that I claimed, actually, they're all zero now. And it's an accounting error, and we're just idiots. And I just signed off on it because I trusted my accountant. No one believes it. Then days later, they just closed the whole winery. Suddenly, after people start questioning her finances, a California winery co-owned by Ilhan's husband, Tim Mynett, has now shut its doors. Wow. For good, amid scrutiny for the Congresswoman's family wealth. The winery ceased business operations April 4th, 2 months after Republicans sent a letter to her demanding answers into discrepancies between her congressional financial disclosures for 2024 and the one she filed 1 year earlier. Remember the difference? It's crazy. In February, they sent a letter to Mynett over from James Comer. He said, financial disclosures filed by your wife show that E Street Crew LLC and Rose Lake Capital, they say you own ownership stakes in it. It went from being worth as much as $51,000 in 2023 and then all the way up in 2024, 1 year, from $51,000 to $30 million. Like that. Man, it's good to be married to a congresswoman and have a bunch of Somali fraudsters who are pumping money into your businesses and laundering it into your gain. So I guess this is the winery, Over Winery. Comer said the discrepancy sparked serious public concerns about how the Santa Rosa winery and venture capital firm, quote, increased so dramatically in value only a year after reporting very limited assets. Now, given that these companies do not publicly list their investors or where their money comes from, this sudden jump in value raises concerns that unknown individuals may be trying to gain influence with your wife. This week, Omar claimed that she and Mynett's net worth actually was not tens of millions of dollars at all. They actually only have less than $100,000. So just like those Learing centers had their records stolen, now they're in panic mode and they're also all revising their total net worth. Her office told the outlet that those numbers were made in error. Our accountant's just an idiot. He doesn't know the difference between tens of millions of dollars and 100,000. Mynett's business, venture capital, and boutique winery was started in the fall of 21 after his prior consulting firm shut down. The winery has since followed the way of the Capital Group that's also now defunct, gone. It wasn't even a traditional brick and mortar winery either. It was just a label that then subcontracted producers throughout the West Coast to bottle wines for them. So they were like white labeling things. When reached by the Post in February, the spokesperson for the company said the winery is now dead. Congressional probe appears to be late to the party, calling into question the business model. Many on social media have pointed out that they've been unable to access the website. Website is deleted or buy anything for months. Cannot find anywhere to buy their wines. This is weird. It's almost like it's not a real winery. Another said, I want to try a bottle of their fine wine, but I don't know any distributors that even sell it. Wow. So it's almost like, yeah, no phone number, no address is a different business. Can't order it because it doesn't exist. It's a giant scam. So just like the Learing centers didn't have any kids doing any Learing, just like the autism centers had no autistic kids, or the senior care centers have no seniors, the winery has no wine. The winery's Instagram account was filled with beautiful photos of wine and people enjoying the tasty treat. Where can I buy your wine? One person said. Oh, that's right. Your winery is as fake as the supposed attack by your employee. All just one giant scam. So they also named themselves the hot brand of the year, and they were also hit with several fraud allegations. Former employees told the newspaper they haven't even been paid, and it's all just one giant scam out there. And that is, of course, from Ilhan's people. And Ilhan, as we know, is so dumb, apparently, she thinks that there were at least 11 world wars. This is a resurfaced clip that's now going viral all over the internet, saying that in January 22, 2025, Ilhan is reading from a script, as she's prone to do, and she just doesn't understand even a basic American history and thinks that there were literally 11 world wars. Here's Ilhan, the great representative from Somalia in Minnesota. Let's boost this volume up so we don't miss a word.
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War XI.
Ah.
Oh, two. Sorry.
11. Yeah, she has to correct herself because she doesn't really understand it in the first place. World War 11 shouldn't even come out of her mouth. Oh yeah, it's World War II. And so people are having fun with this. They're saying her name is Rep 11Han, right? Because I and the L, Ilhan Omar, referring to World War II. 11Han Omar. Oh, World War 11. Great. It's like, how does that even come out of your mouth? It's a gaffe, or she's just a moron. And I think we know the truth. It's probably a little bit of both. So they're not just done there in Minnesota. They also are unleashing in California. Bill Esseley said our office at HSI Los Angeles, we've also seized more than $2 million from Expert Wound Care, which is in Pasadena. This is an advanced wound care clinic suspected of scamming millions of dollars from Medicare through reimbursements for skin graft substitutes and skin grafts that patients never even received. This clinic, which does business as St. Victoria Home Care, is engaged in fraud, according to a seizure warrant. The seizure is part of an ongoing investigation, and this is coming under the leadership of Trump, Vance, and Dr. Oz, turning off the spigot of taxpayer dollars flowing straight into the bank accounts of criminals. So here's the warrant. You see, they say up to $2 million on deposit in Wells Fargo bank account ending in 769. Got a warrant for a telephone, and they're going over to Wells Fargo and they're saying, give us these funds because those are ill-gotten gains. Those are the product of fraud committed by other fraudsters in California. So it's fraud everywhere you look. And we also know that a Somali pirate has just been arrested as of today. We've got Homeland Security also saying that CBP arrested this guy called Saeed Jama Ahmed. He's an illegal alien from Somalia with a prior piracy-related history. He has an outstanding warrant for falsely making, using, and forging a passport, great, as well as a fingerprint match linking him to a 2012 national security threat. Perfect. So this threat occurred during an encounter when the USS Halsey responded to a distress call from a vessel that had been hijacked by pirates, literal pirates, in the Gulf of Aden. Ahmed first illegally entered our nation under the Biden administration. Wow, in 2022. He was issued a full extradition warrant dated 2025. And so we're going to continue to work to arrest criminal illegal aliens to protect American homelands from all threats. Another Somali pirate who is now arrested in America. And so here once again is the clip of Ilhan doing the World War II thing after she calls Americans dumb. Here's what she had to say.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people. The dumbing of the United States has arrived.
Yeah, World War XI?
How else do we get a Trump presidency again?
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War XI.
These people.
So that one's better because they cut off her correction, which is just great. And Base Mike Lee said, World War XI, huh? Senator from Utah, World War XI, huh? Yeah, that was a bad one. They just get worse every time. You know, we had A-bombs on the last one. So who knows what World War III, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all had. It was brutal. So that's Ilhan. And yeah, there's a little bit of truth in those gaffes, isn't there? She corrects herself because she goes, World War XI. That's not right, is it at all? Well, I don't really know anything. So World War II. So that's who we're dealing with, my friends. And she calls us dumb. She says that everybody who voted for the president or who is not on her side, that wants a full-blown invasion from her friends from Somalia, one of the most backwards countries on the planet, is too dumb to have an intellectual conversation with, where she reads from a script and doesn't even know what Roman numerals are. And so we're going to keep our eye on this one. Shout out to the FBI and the DOJ and Homeland Security for now investigating this new DOJ, this new FBI, under some new stewardship under AG Todd Blanche acting, has a little bit extra pep in its step, and we're happy to see some justice hopefully coming down soon. I'm sure there is a level 10 panic out there in Somaliland in Minnesota, and after the evidence is processed and reviewed, presumably we'll see some criminal charges coming soon, because I'm sure that not all of them were upstanding citizens who were just billing only the people who needed the treatments. Sure, it's worse than that. So we're going to keep our eye on this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we see arrests, hopefully, coming soon. All right, we got one more big update, my friends, and then we'll hear from you. This has been a long time coming. Top Fauci advisor now indicted. You may remember the name David Morens, now under charge by the DOJ. We see they posted this today, and we have the full indictment queued up here. 29 pages with multiple charges, including conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. And it's not just him that is under the scope of this investigation. There are also co-conspirators, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator number 2, which may mean that we have more indictments related to this coming down soon. But before we dive into the indictment, a little bit more about who this dude is. We got the new DOJ saying he is now indicted. He's a former senior NIAID official indicted for concealing federal records back during the pandemic. And we've been waiting for some COVID justice for a long time here, saying these allegations represent a profound abuse of trust at a time when the American people needed it most. We were relying on these people who told us every day, we care about your health. We only want you to live. No. We're not shilling pharmaceuticals to pump up our stocks and to get big fat federal grants and to make a bunch of money. We care about you. That's why you have to do exactly what we say, or else we think that you should be penalized for that and fired and thrown out of office, thrown out of your job. During the height of the pandemic, said Todd Blanche, as alleged in the indictment, Dr. Morens, and his co-conspirators deliberately concealed and falsified records in an effort to suppress alternative theories about the origins of the vid. COVID, and we got suspended. We got videos removed from the internet. We had doctors who had their licenses stripped away from them. We had firefighters who were threatened with their jobs. It was insane. If you even debated this in America, you're allowed to debate things in America. Government officials have a solemn duty to provide honest, well-grounded facts and advice in the service of public interest, not to advance their own personal or ideological agendas or their own pocketbooks. Many of these people got fat and rich off of this. And so the indictment now announced Tuesday, April 28, 2026, saying this guy, David Morens, he's 78. He lives in Chester, Maryland, is charged with multiple charges that we looked at. He was a senior advisor to the NIAID Office of the Director from 2006 to 2022. Todd Blanche said he was circumventing record protocols. This is from Cash, with the intention of avoiding transparency. We're not going to tolerate this. Not only did he do that, he also engaged in illegal obfuscation of his communications, but he got kickbacks from doing so. So he lied to us and he got rich in the aftermath. If you engage in this activity conspiring against us, we will not stop until you face justice. Man, this new Cash is pretty good too. U.S. Attorney Kelly O'Hayes, she said, when public officials deliberately circumvent the law and hide their communications, they undermine our trust. And if they disregard their legal obligations, they're in big trouble. As a senior advisor working with Fauci and others, Morens counseled senior NIAID official 1 and other senior level staff on senior level policies. He developed recommendations and solutions for issues that impacted the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and wrote and edited manuscripts. He provided guidance, expertise to senior staff members about epidemiological studies. He gathered information from grantees and others in the community about the nature of the vid. This enabled him to understand their historical activities, and he assisted. He formulated policies and procedures, and then he briefed senior NIAID official 1, which may or may not be Fauci, so that guy, official 1, could then relay that information to the President of the United States and then to the public. Probably Fauci. According to the indictment, Morens, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, and others conspired during the pandemic to defraud and to commit several offenses against the United States after they terminated his grant. NIH terminated the grant, understanding the risk of a bat coronavirus emergence, based on allegations that it emerged from Wuhan, the China virus. NIAID awarded the grant to Company 1 and co-conspirator 1, who then made a sub-award to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And the indictment goes into it in a bunch of detail. We'll read through it. If convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for conspiracy against the United States, a maximum of 20 years for each count of destruction, altering, and falsifying the records, concealing, removing, mutilating the records, and hopefully he gets the max for betraying the trust of the people whom he served. He was supposed to be an honorable person during a time of crisis, and he got rich off of it, while the rest of us had to follow his guidance, whether we liked it or not. And so here's a little bit more about who this guy is in case you missed it. This is what James Comer had to say about this. He said, "This is Dr. Anthony Fauci's top advisor, David Morens, just been indicted." James Comer saying, "This is good news," capital. Dr. David Morens, so-called doctor, deliberately obstructed Congress's investigations into the origins of the vid. He even admitted to me under oath that he deleted a lot of emails. Here's a clip from 2024 where Fauci's senior advisor, David Morens, who was caught deliberately obstructing their investigations, where he testified to Congress. We'll listen to a little bit of this, then we'll jump into the indictment and come back.
I'm sure as you've already testified, you're aware that deleting federal records is a crime. And as you've said, you previously testified that you did not delete any federal records. But on February 24th, 2021, you wrote, quote, "I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I'm FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail," end quote. And the next day on February 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, "But I learned the tricks last year from an old friend, Marge Moore, who heads our FOIA office and also hates FOIAs," end quote. Yes or no, is Marge Moore the FOIA lady you were referring to?
She was at the time. I believe she's retired since then.
Did the NIH FOIA office instruct you on how to delete emails or avoid FOIA?
No.
On October 25th, 2021, another scientist wrote, quote, "David is concerned about the privacy of text and other messages from his cell phone to you and me because he has been using a government phone. This came from Tony," end quote. Sir, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding using personal phone or email to communicate with Dr. Daszak?
I don't remember it. It's possible. I probably wouldn't have remembered it, and I don't remember it. He and I usually never talked about that kind of stuff. It would be very unusual if it happened.
On January 18th, you testified that you did not have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth. On October 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, "Peter, from Tony's numerous recent comments to me, they're trying to protect you," end quote. You meaning EcoHealth and Dr. Daszak.
Wild.
Dr. Morens, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth?
Well, the ones you just mentioned, I don't have any recollection of that.
Of course you don't. No recollection.
No recollection, no. Let me just say what I do remember is one time in a face-to-face meeting, he referred or alluded to some stuff that was in the press. I don't even think he said what it was, but it was about, I assumed it was about Peter's grants and press reports about it, and the ending of the grant. And I said to him, sort of out of the blue, guessing what he was really thinking, I said to him, "Tony, I know you would have never been involved in getting rid of that grant." And he didn't respond. He just sort of looked at me and...
So Dr. Fauci was always a big defender of EcoHealth and their right to receive federal funding?
I can't speak for him. I think he had great respect for them. And when the grant problems came about, I think he was troubled by it. In fact, I just thought of something that I'd forgotten to say. At some point, somebody, it may not have been Tony, but it might have been Hugh Uppencloss, somebody said to me, Peter's his own worst enemy because he made some mistakes on that grant.
I would say that's a factual statement.
Yeah, so Peter, of course, Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance, they were the ones getting federal money to apparently contract with the Wuhan Institute of Virology to do the gain of function research that Fauci said they were not doing, and got into this with Rand Paul over and over. He says, I'm pretty sure what you're describing is gain of function. And Fauci says, you, Senator, don't know what you're talking about. And pretty sure we all know what we're talking about that may have resulted in the virus permeating throughout the planet, killing millions of people. So these people are monsters. And now this guy is being indicted. Here's what it looks like. Multiple charges: conspiracy, falsification, destruction, and others. This one coming out of the District of Maryland. And this one, you're not even going to believe it. Look who this got assigned to. Judge Paula Zenas, rhymes with. We know who she is. The same judge who is bending over backwards to help Kilmar wife-beater Abrego Garcia remain in our country illegally. So she's used to dealing with wife-beaters and other monsters and likes to enable that. But she is conveniently assigned to this case of David Morens, the COVID fraudster, allegedly. Here's what the indictment says. You know, on or about March 13, 2020, Trump declared a nationwide emergency because of the pandemic. We remember, on or about March 15th, states began to implement restrictive measures. Businesses were shuttered. Schools were closed. Children had years of their life, years stolen from them. They'll never be the same. Millions became sick. Over 1 million Americans died. The nation braced itself for the impact. We wanted answers. How could this be treated? Where did it come from? Was it a naturally occurring virus, or was this a bioweapon that was engineered in some lab somewhere? Could it have changed the trajectory of our analysis? The pandemic had a profound impact on the United States. It changed everything. The records generated by its agencies had a significant historical, institutional, medical, and public value. Now, as explained herein, David Morens and other co-conspirators defrauded and committed offenses against the United States. We know who these agencies are. We know it's the NIAID, a sub-agency of the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. They all played a major role in the COVID response. Now, Morens resided in Maryland. He was a medical doctor for much of his career. He was a federal employee and a public official, ultimately reaching the rank of captain in the U.S. Public Health Service. From 1983 to 98, also in the Army Reserves, lieutenant colonel, and others. Then became a senior advisor, to NIAID official number 1. We're presuming that is Fauci, the guy who was, of course, briefing the president and briefing the public, as we saw in the press release. Now, his senior advisor duties were broad, and he hosted a bunch of matters about infectious diseases. He would take on senior level policies, provide guidance. He had a bunch of updates for Congress and things of significant importance to the public. As senior advisors, he also gathered information from grantees and others. All of this related to the vid, to assist in formulating policies, to brief Fauci, and then Fauci would brief the president, Congress, and the public, right? That's basically the only person that we saw. Could be like, Deborah Birx or somebody else, but it's probably Fauci. Says co-conspirator 1 was the president and CEO of a company. Co-conspirator 1 was a resident of New York. Company 1 was a nonprofit, and they had a mission of protecting people from emergent infectious diseases, about the origins of these new viruses. In a notice of award, so this is probably Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance, in a notice of award, they granted money to co-conspirator 1, and then the Wuhan was a sub-award from the company. So it goes from the federal government to EcoHealth to China, to Wuhan, China, where they're concocting these horrific things. Co-conspirator 2, another individual, physician, scientist, professor who worked for the academic institution and also got grants. So we know that there's a Federal Records Act, right? It says preserve your records. They're important. Do not delete them. We have safeguards to make sure that these are part of the record. Federal law prohibits you from deleting these things. NIH provides yearly training to these people. According to training that we know David Morens, the guy we just heard from, receives, you can't delete these things. These are federal records. He was instructed that if you're not sure if a document is a federal record, if you think this is like a personal record, you should consult a record liaison. He was informed they come in all different mediums, electronic formats and others. Email records were required to be sent using an NIH email. You were not to use a personal email to conduct NIH business, period. He was also further informed that records were only considered personal if they had no relation to any of your official business. And you were required by law to suspend the destruction of records from the FOIA request until the records were satisfied. We also know what FOIA is here. Having read a lot of FOIA documents, HHS implemented the Freedom of Information Act request. There's a presumption of openness, and you have to comply with those. But they didn't. There were multiple FOIA requests that came in about Morens, about EcoHealth, and or co-conspirator one, which may have been Peter Daszak or somebody close to him. In the period from April 2020 to December 2022, the NIAID received hundreds of FOIAs all about the vid. Of those requests, many sought communications involving Morens. Shout out to the first one. Filed courtesy of Judicial Watch, amazing. Science Magazine, Some Individual, U.S. Right to Know, Whistleblower Protection Project. Shout out to the Heritage Foundation. All saying, we want some files. Beginning in January 2020, Morens and co-conspirator one began communicating about the emerging coronavirus in China. They're like, oh crap, did we do that? dmorens at niaid.nih.gov is his email, and others began to send emails and inquire whether EcoHealth, or co-conspirator one rather, and others, quote, had any inside info on this new coronavirus that isn't yet in the public domain. Someone sends an email. Morens, do you know what's going on here? A lot of panic over here that one of your little labs leaked something. That same day, co-conspirator one responded that he had lots of information, and he said, it may be our coronavirus grant specifically focused on China. So then January 27, co-conspirator one emails bullet points about the bat coronavirus over to him at NIH. He stated in the beginning of his email that he was providing this information so that Morens might be able to give it over to Fauci for public use, stating a few things for your information, and hopefully you can pass it on to Fauci for when he's being interviewed re the new COVID. Same day, on J27, 2020, Morens responded from his NIH email saying, I will pass this on to Fauci. He then emailed the information provided to him by co-conspirator one to senior NID official one, Fauci, presumably through the chief of staff. Then in February, Morens wrote about the viruses as part of his NIH duties. He used his NIH email account to participate in an email chain with co-conspirator one and other colleagues to suggest publications on topics related to the outbreak of the vid. This included, according to an email from his co-conspirator and others, quote, timely commentaries about key aspects of the situation, things that are from 30,000 feet, i.e. broad perspectives, and publishable in journals willing to publish quickly or in key newspapers and other media. They had to set the narrative and set the frame of the whole upcoming pandemic. Between Feb 2020 and March, Morens and co-conspirator one, they authored or co-authored articles and commentaries about the pandemic. Their correspondence, including those discussed above, occurred using his NIH email account. Then in April, NIH issued a letter notifying Company One that it was reviewing allegations that the Wuhan released the virus responsible for the pandemic. While it reviewed the allegations, NIH instructed Company One to cease providing any funds under the grant number to the Wuhan Institute. Then on April 24th, NIH emailed co-conspirator one, probably Daszak, a letter notifying him that they're terminating the grant. Now the cover-up begins. Co-conspirator one forwarded the letter to co-conspirator two the same day. Co-conspirator two said, you need to challenge that, but not before the new funding comes through. They had applied for new funding, so they create the virus and they need, we need more money. We need $7 million from the Emerging Infectious Disease Regional Center so that we can go fight the actual virus. Then the conspiracy begins. Beginning in or about 2020 April, and continuing through at least through June 2023, David Morens knowingly and willfully conspired with the other two to commit offenses, violations of the law. where they destroyed records, impeded the records, and more. They also committed other offenses, undertaking to destroy the records. All of these essentially are destruction of records charges. To commit violations where the grantees got money in exchange for the discharge of their official duties, and to defraud the United States in a bunch of different ways. Those are the charges. Here is how the conspiracy went down. Others, Morens co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, saying that they used his personal non-governmental email to exchange federal records from his knowledge as being a government official. The federal records created and transferred all included a bunch of types of internal information. Some things were controlled NIH work product. So government details he's shipping out to his personal Gmail and then sending it out to these co-conspirators. Records about efforts to influence the NIH to actually fund the company again, to keep that money flowing. Records about Company One's grant termination, reinstatement, suspension, including the drafting and editing of statements on behalf of Company One. So he helps the company who just got canceled do damage control and try to get their money back. Records about public writings on the origins of the virus. No, don't say that. Say this. Records concerning congressional oversight over NIH. Records about his access to Fauci and his use of that to convey other information about the company back over to Fauci. Now, what happens is, of course, they destroyed those records. Concealed, removed, or destroyed, or caused the concealment or removal of those records in order to evade FOIA and the Federal Records Act. How did they do it? They say they would work and communicate with others also so that they could publish papers, other writings to support the company, but without directly including them in the emails. They used government-issued email accounts and reminding Morris, so they would Morens telling him, don't use this email. Okay, he sends emails from them. They say, no, don't do it. Send those through your non-government email address. Otherwise, all of our communications are going to be subject to FOIA. Big paragraph right there. It's intent, right? Stop emailing me from there. They then would email information from a personal account and then relay that back up to Fauci while instructing Morens that your Gmail is not going to be covered in FOIA. All of them, the co-conspirators and Morens, they would share facts, press reports on the origin of COVID and other information about the bat coronavirus. They would draft and publish emails and create articles, anticipate press reactions, develop talking points, coordinate responses, and more, all from their personal accounts. Co-conspirator 1 also provided and promised to provide Morens with things of value. Wow. Because of official acts and behind the scenes shenanigans that are favorable to their company. So we're going to get you fat and rich if you help us get our funds back. And they would communicate all of this through the Gmail account. Morens did receive and agreed to receive things of value from co-conspirator 1 because of his official acts and engaged in, quote, behind the scenes shenanigans. They concealed all of their conduct by using his Gmail, and they sent those items to his personal residence. What a piece of work. So in furtherance of the conspiracy, at least one of the co-conspirators did these overt acts. We continue. They all exchanged emails and took actions directed in or whole or part toward ensuring written communications between them would not be available to FOIA. They did this by keeping the discussions on the Gmail account. Here are some of the communications that were specifically offloaded to Gmail. On April 25, after learning about the cancellation of the grant, Morens forwarded his communications from his NIH account to his Gmail. Then he emailed stating, "This is sent from my Gmail. Please send all replies back to my Gmail." He said, "There are things I can't say, except that Fauci is aware, and I have learned that there are ongoing efforts within the NIH to steer through this with minimal damage to you and to your colleagues and to NIH and NIAID." And they were all in it together, right? Because they gave them the grants originally that then were funding this gain-of-function research over in Wuhan. They offloaded it to a foreign country because they didn't want to do it here. So then on April 26, co-conspirator 1 wrote back and copied others. He said, David, great. We'll communicate with you via Gmail from now on. Another email went out. He said, more FOIAs are on their way. This time to NIAID. It includes emails to us. He alerted the group, targeting Fauci and looking for emails to us and others, Wuhan. Morens responded by thanking co-conspirator 1. He said, hey, thanks for the heads up. We all dread these FOIAs. They take up so much time, I know. On or about May 3rd, Morens then emailed members of a prominent professional medical organization to enlist them in speaking out on behalf of co-conspirator 1 and his company because the termination of the back coronavirus grant was damaging them. The email stated in part, colleagues, I need to keep this correspondence off of U.S. government emails for obvious reasons, so I'm sending this from Gmail. I am under multiple FOIAs already, and co-conspirator 1 is facing orchestrated death threats. Yeah, we and co-conspirator 2 and I have advised 1 to lay low, not go to the press, go through NIH to get a face-to-face meeting, and let others come to his defense. On or about May 15th, Morens emailed co-conspirator 1, falsely stating that the NIAID FOIA officer had told Morens that he would cover his rear by deleting emails and making use of FOIA delays, and that he would soon need to train himself to use only Gmail, and that he appreciated that co-conspirator 1 was sensitive to that. Then on May 16th, Morens emailed them about an article that he was drafting to their benefit. He said, we'll agree that we want to keep off of it any fingerprints of you, which is North Carolina scientist number 1. He concluded by saying, I need to keep this off government email and government phone texts. July 2nd, 2020. We're in the thick of it now. Morens sent an email from his NIH account to his Gmail account. He said, hey, co-conspirator in Outlook, delete or send to Gmail. July 3rd, he submitted and caused his submission to a commentary in medical journal saying it came from Nature. Okay. Yeah, we're starting to get the picture. He's now organizing the response. It came from Nature. Okay. It didn't come from a lab. It didn't come from Fauci giving a grant to EcoHealth that then sent it to Wuhan, that then made this up. And we're all responsible for it, going all the way back up to the federal friggin' government. No, it came from a seafood location in China and from a bat cave somewhere, a wet market. The piece was authored by Morens and intended to benefit their company. Then, after learning that NIH had awarded $7.5 million back to the same company, the same grant the conspirators had been concerned about, Morens emailed, oh my gosh. After they got the $7.5 million, Morens emailed co-conspirator 1 from his NIH email account. What an idiot. He said, do I get a kickback? Question. Too much effing money. Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss. Wow. He sent that in an email. Do I get a kickback? Too much effing money. Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss. Wow. In response, on or about August 28th, co-conspirator 1 emailed Morens at his Gmail account. So that guy responds, he goes, what an idiot. He says, yes, I'll email him back. Like I can't even believe these people are so dumb. I can't actually, because they almost wrecked the planet with their little science experiment. At his Gmail account, he said, of course there's a kickback. It starts with 5 more years of FOIA request. I just hope it doesn't culminate in 5 years of federal jail. Well, hopefully that is coming soon. I hope it does. On or about November 19th, in an email with the subject line, attacks on company 1 continue. Co-conspirator 1 wrote Morens and co-conspirator 2. He says, David, I'm using your Gmail address to keep you out of the FOIA target. Just wanted you to know that we're still under attack here at EcoHealth or wherever. The U.S. Right to Know, an anti-GMO, anti-vax group, which, is right about everything, associated with organicconsumers.org, FOIA'd NIH for our emails. NIH refused, and now they're suing. Then on February 23rd, 2021, Morens, co-conspirator 1 and 2 exchanged emails under the subject line, briefing of probably Fauci, where co-conspirator 2 told Morens to, quote, pay attention to the email address you use. If you get FOIA'd and have to respond, it will cause us, and of lesser importance, me, the less we provide to the enemy, the better. They're all covering it up. Then on February 24th, again, 21, we're making our way through COVID. Morens emailed Conspirator 1 and Conspirator 2, says briefing of Senior Official 1, probably Fauci. I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I'm FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we were all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail. So there's his intent right there for the cover-up and to engage in the conspiracy. On or about Feb 20, in his own words, he then emailed the other co-conspirators and stating that he and Fauci received a huge FOIA yesterday, seeking any and all documents that mentioned the word Wuhan Institute or WIV, or your names, ... Your names will not show up in FOIA, at least not from my info. June 17th, Morens in another email says confidential within our small group, please. Emails the others, stating that he received a production request from 5 U.S. senators. Let's go. Some of the issues that we've been dealing with over the past year focused on the origin of COVID, the termination of the major Sabre coronavirus grant, and related issues. He said that he retained very few documents on these matters. Continue to request that correspondence. Send it to my Gmail so that it's not identifiable. October 5 comes around. He sends him another warning. Says that FOIA picked up an email that he had sent to you guys. I deleted that email, but I now learned that every email I ever got or sent since 1998 is captured and will be turned over. Whether I or not, I instantly delete it. He says, oh, I deleted it from my Outlook, but that didn't delete it from the server. Oh, I'm a medical doctor, a genius who's going to solve the planet's problems. Gmail, phone, text, I need to scrupulously rely on those exclusively. Then on October 6, co-conspirator emails Morens to warn them about prior emails that were sent from their accounts. The email had the subject line, first batch of emails with David Morens. At NIAID address might have been FOIA'd. Co-conspirator 1 attached 27 emails and wrote in the body of the email. He said David's NIH email address was FOIA'd, and they're pulling out emails to me and about Wuhan. You're in some of these. We started using David's Gmail in April around the time of cancellation of our grant, but some slipped through the net. And as is expected, there was some embarrassing stuff in there. The most heinous is ... Some details of what happened with the NIH cancellation and what my response to that was and how you helped me shape it. If these emails are with reporters, they'll use them to create stories as per above with headlines like powerful cabal of scientists from within NIH helped draft the anti-lab leak narrative, which they did. We talked about this for years. And co-conspirator 1 suspected the Wuhan may have continued gain of function work outside of the NIH grant. Then on October 6, co-conspirator sent Morens another email. Second batch of emails. So now this guy's like panicking. So he's going back through his emails. He's doing a find of all of the emails that came from Morens, his NIH account. He says, if they get these, we're in trouble. So now they're trying to craft the narrative around the emails. Second batch of emails that I've identified, approximately 34 there. Co-conspirator 1 identified the emails that may cause issues for them if they go public, including an email where he described as continuing the story that we were working in a cabal to orchestrate stuff, which they were. This is why they're hiding it. Co-conspirator 1 concluded by stating, I will massively increase my scrutiny of all emails that come from David or CC him to make sure the NIH address is replaced by his Gmail from now on. Really important. Then October 27th. More in emails. I just want to let you know I'm working with our IT guys to get a fix where my Gmail no longer gets on my government phone or computer. So far, it seems that my phone and Gmail are fairly safe. He says, I want to let you know I am following events and I will stay in touch with him through you. Then October 27th, Morens emails again. It is probably safe for you to contact me on Gmail, but if there's anything sensitive about Fauci, it's best to just call me. October 27th, in a note to himself, he emails his NIH account a contentless emails line. It says, Gmail signature remove NIH. Then in November, he emails the conspirators again, declaring, my Gmail is now safe from FOIA and hacking on all of my devices. So it should be safe to communicate with you safely as long as we use private Gmail. He said, please pass this on to the others. And I ask you both that nothing gets sent to me except to my Gmail, and make sure that what gets sent to my Gmail doesn't have a CC to another government employee who could be FOIA. These guys are busted, man. On or about December 7th, in an email with the subject line, and it says co-conspirator 1 and Salem witch trials. he emailed the chair of the company board to put in a word for co-conspirator 1 and the company team and said, send me emails on Gmail and keep these private. Between September 15th, 2022 and September 18th, more emails talking about FOIA requests, anticipated headlines, and other emails like leading scientists conspire to undermine the lab leak theory via back channel to Fauci. All true. So then we get near the end of page 20 of 29. Morens co-conspirator and co-conspirator 1 and 2 and others use this email, Gmail, to conceal federal records and to back channel information to presumably Fauci, except where specifically indicated the following emails were all sent or received by Morens and his Gmail. April 28th, emails about non-public NIH records titled NIAID COVID-19 Implementation Plan. Every page about COVID research. Second email was about research updates. Another email, January 21. Please ask Fauci to ask U.S. Secretary of State to send an email with the information in it. I'll share it with the World Health Organization team. Please get the message to him that the only way to really understand the risk of these viruses and to protect the planet is to be working with China. At the time, China, co-conspirator 1 was in China to investigate the origin, and he was the only U.S. member on the mission. February 21, another email. He hopes that Morens, quote, might whisper in Fauci's ear to soothe the right message about the reinstatement of our money grant. February 21, another email stating a very good idea about briefing Fauci and that he would offer to brief senior NIAID official 1 and senior staff before briefing the COVID group. March comes around, 21. Co-conspirator 1 introduced a Nobel laureate to Morens over email saying, introducing you to David Morens, who works directly for Fauci, and that the Nobel laureate was speaking out about the abuse of the funding system for political gain. Make sure the email would be read. I'll now exit the email conversation because of my clear conflict of interest in this matter. Then Morens makes edits in March to written responses to 2 letters about the grants. Morens was aware the letter would be read. He's helping the company who's applying back to his people to get the grant, making edits in there for them. Here's a comment from the Word document. David Morens logs into the Word document. You know, in this paragraph, you might say the lab was built under international safety engineering standards, adheres to international safety practice standards, and the lead Wuhan staff were trained in safety in the United States by known authorities at the University of Texas. You might also say that despite the claim of one individual, no safety concerns are known to have been alleged by other safety experts. Just like editing their documents for them to send it on back. Then they submitted the response, and co-conspirator 1 did not explain to anybody that Morens actually participated in the letter. Then April, Morens and co-conspirator 1 exchange more Zoom meetings with Fauci tomorrow. Morens says it might be best to connect you two in an off-the-record manner between other scientists. We are getting FOIA'd nonstop, so it's most important that Fauci not have anything on the record that could come back to bite him. More emails. Hopefully you can do this in a way that avoids FOIA. More emails, draft response, and he's helping them literally draft their responses. Here's a short version of our response, bullet points. Thinks that you can help me with those. October 25, 2021. More email exchanges. Co-conspirator 2 said, I just spent some time on the phone with David. He's concerned about the privacy of texts and other messages from his cell phone to you and me because he has been using a government phone, which permits personal conversations as well. So even things sent via email or Gmail could be FOIA-able. They then communicate even more about a couple of things. Morens says, first on the timeline to make it more specific with dates and details, Morens suggested you contact him about the grants, talking about their 5-year report. And this is where we get into the illegal gratuities. Let's go. Morens used his role as senior advisor to Fauci to engage in official acts favorable to these co-conspirators and their companies. For and because of these official acts, some of which are identified above, and because of behind-the-scenes shenanigans, quote, co-conspirator 1 provided and promised to provide things of value back to David Morens. They concealed their contact by communicating on the Gmail. In June 2020, Morens emailed co-conspirator 1. He said, let's win this anti-science battle, get you refunded and Uber funded, and then settle scores and kick some ass. Then June 25, 20, co-conspirator 1 gave Morens 2 bottles of the Prisoner of Red Napa Valley wine, not from Ilhan's winery, from Bounty Hunter Rare Wine and Spirits, which was delivered to his residence. The wine included the following message. This is the first of what I hope will be a continued series of expressions of gratitude for your advice, support, and behind-the-scenes shenanigans in my battle against your boss's boss, his boss, and the ultimate boss on the Hill. It takes courage and commitment to do what you've done, given your job and the vindictive nature of the administration, presumably talking about Trump. I am eternally grateful for that, and I hope I will be able to return the favor one day. In the meantime, cheers, have some wine. Then June 25, upon the receipt of the wine, Morens emailed from his Gmail thanking him for the wine, stating, now I am actually going to have to do something to deserve it. Let me think, ... I'll do a bunch of things for you now, like a little whore, including writing a scientific commentary that outlines the importance of what you have been doing, but without mentioning co-conspirator 1 or the grant termination. Then another email goes from to Morens from his Gmail. Consider this my phase 2 gift. Phase 3 might involve actually a meal. The Michelin-starred restaurants are opening in Paris, DC, and New York will do eventually. These people are gross. On or about July 3rd, Trump is still the president. Morens submitted and caused the submission of a commentary in the prominent medical journal that said COVID came from nature and definitely not these guys' labs. Morens was listed as an author of the commentary. It was to benefit the company and the conspirator and was funded in part by the intramural research from the NIH. October 6, 2021, we fast forward over a year. In another email, second batch of emails FOIA'd. And this may be disclosed publicly. In the email, co-conspirator 1 specifically referenced one email where co-conspirator 1 had sent David a bottle of wine, but noted that it's absolutely cut and dried. But it gives the impression that something bad happened. I believe if the wine has a value of $20 or less, that's fine. So all of that is the conspiracy. These guys colluding behind the scenes. Here are the emails. Approximate dates, all listed here for concealment and mutilation of records in various dates. These people are totally corrupt, and they covered up their tracks, and they were organizing and nudging the narrative to support them and their money. And he says, that's a lot of effing money. Where are my kickbacks? Signed by U.S. Attorney Kelly O'Hayes. And then they just come out and they play idiot. They are so dumb. Here's more of David Morens, the guy who was in those emails that we just read.
On April 21st, 2021, you wrote that Dr. Fauci is, quote, too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble, end quote. On June 16th, 2020, you wrote, we're all smart enough to know to never have smoking guns, and if we wouldn't put them in emails, and if we found them, we'd delete them. Now, did you ever have conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding deleting emails?
I don't remember any such thing.
You don't remember?
No, sir. And it would be very. Tony and I don't have those kind of conversations.
Did you ever delete any official records?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, but
Liar.
again, we're at the issue of defining what's a federal record. I deleted a lot of emails. I do it every day. But in my mind, they're trivial things not related to government business.
In response to my questions, Dr. Back said he absolutely agreed with every compliance action the NIH took against Dr. Daszak and EcoHealth. And over the past 2 weeks, both EcoHealth and Dr. Daszak have been suspended from receiving federal funding, finally, and proposed for debarment. Do you agree with NIH's actions against EcoHealth?
You know, I don't know the details about. I've never seen the grant. I don't know what's in it. I can't really speak to that. But I can say I've known Peter Daszak for almost 20 years, and in my personal opinion, he's an honorable, decent.
So have you had conversations with Dr. Daszak about this recent suspension?
Not a conversation. I knew about it. He sent me an email or something. Was a
so they occurred over email. You and
Sorry about that.
Receiving
conversation. I knew about it. He sent me an email or something. Was a
so they occurred over email. You and Dr. Dassett communicated via email about his disbarment.
I should say Gmail, not NIH email. He doesn't send. You know, he was sending NIH stuff to my NIH email for a long time, and I kept telling him don't do that. And that's how this Gmail thing started. He sent me in 2020.
Why'd you tell him not to do that?
A message to me on my government NIH email, and I forget what it was. Maybe I never knew what it was, but eventually that email was FOIA'd.
Okay.
So wait a second. Can I finish?
Go ahead.
Eventually, this email was FOIA'd, and Peter contacted me and said, you know, some friend you are. I send you an email with all my personal stuff, and it ends up in the newspaper. And that really struck me. That was a turning point for me because he was under death threats. And
right. And I get it. Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one last yes or no question. Have you had any conversations with Dr. Dassett about this suspension? Yes or no?
The suspension?
The suspension of the disbarment, the suspension.
Not conversation, but he has sent me an email with.
But that's email's a conversation. A conversation via email then. You've had a conversation via email with Dr. Dassett.
Well, if you call it a conversation, yes. It's you know, we didn't talk about it, but he just sent it to me, and I read it or not. That's all.
Thank you.
Wow. So he's just a confused old man who just, conversation on an email is not really a conversation according to him. And some other emails are just trivial matters, and you just have to delete those things. And because Dazzak is getting death threats, he doesn't have to comply with federal law. We see in the emails that this guy's a liar, and now he's playing dumb and folksy like he's an innocent person just trying to be a doctor to save lives, where they are explicitly saying, do not communicate about these things. He's helping them craft a narrative from inside the government to support them. He's getting bottles of wine sent back over to his house. They're saying, we're going to go to Michelin star restaurants all around the world. And now the truth is coming to light. And so I hope this is the start of a lot of pandemic accountability. These people broke many laws. They lied to us about the origin of how this all started, which shaped a lot of people's understanding of their risk factors. And then they, like a dragnet across the entire country, frightened everybody into compliance with their pharmaceutical companies. And in my opinion, that's caused lasting, permanent, irreparable damage to the entire planet. They all belong in jail. I'm happy he's been charged. Hopefully there are many more to come. We're going to keep our eye on this one. And of course, hopefully you join us and subscribe as we do. DOJ under Todd Blanche has a little bit of extra pep in their step. We're happy to see it. So we'll be here. Thanks for hitting the subscribe button, and we'll see you back here on the next one. All right, friends. What a day. Blowout of charges, search warrants, and indictments. Glorious indeed. If you're just getting here, quick recap on what we talked about. So at the start of the show, we talked about James Comey, now under a new indictment for his 8647. We explained exactly what those charges look like under federal law. We took a look at the indictment itself. We also saw who the assigned judge was, looked at the most recent Supreme Court case on this one called Counterman versus Colorado, which was a 7-2 decision. What is or is not an actual true threat, and how might this apply to Comey? Then we heard the actual press briefing from the DOJ today. A lot more will be revealed on this one. Then we went over to Minnesota, aka Little Somalia, and saw that there were search warrants executed across over 24, it sounds like, various locations. We had Tim Walz trying to take credit for this. We had the Learing Center get raided. We saw reaction videos on exactly what went down. We learned that Ilhan and her husband are now trying to get out of the blast zone, wrapping up their winery and closing the discrepancy in their financial statements to Congress by saying, actually, we're not multimillionaires. We saw that in California, they're also executing search warrants. This Somali pirate has been arrested, and Ilhan, in a gaffe or an exposure of the truth, thinks that there were 11 world wars before she corrected it. And Mike Lee's having fun with that. Then Fauci's senior advisor indicted for COVID cover-ups and collusion with co-conspirators, the people probably behind the manufacture of the gain-of-function virus, now colluding with each other to craft the narrative. And we got to hear from the man himself, now under federal indictment, David Morens. And so lots to unpack as these investigations continue. Thank you for being here, and thank you for subscribing to our channel. Before we close it out, would love to invite you to come over and support ericshouse.org. This is a nonprofit started by my mama. Link is down in the description below. This Saturday, we have coming up the event, which is our annual fundraiser. So it's called ericshouse.org. This is the link over on GiveButter. This is an amazing organization. So we lost my younger brother, Eric, and my mama started this organization called Eric's House. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So any donations that you make are totally tax deductible. We started a Watching the Watchers team. We'd love it if you donated. And of course, in lieu of any super chats or anything like that, we'd love it if you went over to the link and just made a contribution. It's an organization that's set up for people who've lost a loved one due to suicide, like my brother, Eric. He died by suicide. He had a long history, not a long history, but a history of drugs, and he broke his wrist. His wrist was the subject of multiple surgeries, and those surgeries turned into the opioids. The opioids turned into heroin, and then he killed himself. And so we've been creating this community and this organization to help other people who've gone through that. So if you've lost somebody due to suicide, tragic death, somebody who's taken from us too young, or overdose and things like that, then this is the place for you. And they do a lot of amazing work, and you can check it out. They have appointments, they've got free counseling, they've got men's groups, all these various groups, and you can donate to support the organization's continuity. And right now we're trying to get 80 grand on that one. And I just started the Watcher team last night. Currently, my mama, I think, is in the lead. Friends of Hope raised the most money. Your boy's got zero over here. Oh, great. So if you have anything, any love you want to send towards this organization, we'd love to have your support. It's all tax deductible, and it really goes to a good cause. Like, they actually do the work. And they've got a bunch of people who could use it. So we have our event coming up this Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You can also just go over to the YouTube channel. And if you go to the main homepage on this one, on the GiveButter, like, this is what the organization looks like. They've got a mission. You can contact them. There's Greg. He's amazing. And it's awesome. And my former law firm, we used to really support them a lot as well. So the link is in the description below. Would really love it if you could just, send them some love and write it off on your taxes. But it goes to good. It really goes to, good use. And this Saturday we'll be streaming. Your boy's going to be hosting that. We're going to have some amazing interviews with some awesome people who all come in and explain, their loss, what they went through, what they experienced. We found that there's, before somebody dies, like if you're addicted to drugs, there's all sorts of treatment centers that will post you up in there and, take your insurance money and all those things. But once somebody dies, there's a lot less support out there. And if it's a tragic death, it's very hard to connect with other people, and, caused a lot of problems in my life. And I had a lot of recovery to do after it as well. So thank you, ericshouse.org, or just click the link in the description below, and we'll continue to plug this throughout the week. So in lieu of any super chats or anything like that, I'd really just love it if you just went over there and sent them some love, because they need it. And we'll be back here on Saturday, not on our channel, but on the Eric's House YouTube channel. So check that out as well. And thank you, friends. Yeah, thank you, friends. We're doing well now. We've got, you never get over it exactly. You never forget it when you go on family vacations like we're on right now, and you're like, where's my brother at? That's kind of a bummer. But fortunately, there are amazing people out there. And if you connect with amazing people, then it's just not as bad. So thank you for your support to Eric's House. Got that all linked down in the description below. And if you're in this space, if you've lost somebody, or even if you've been helped by Eric's House, I know many of you have reached out to Eric's House. We'd love it. Now's the time, if you have it in you, to send out to some colleagues and stuff so that their mission can continue, and they do amazing work. All right. So links in the description. Thanks for letting me plug that. Really appreciate that. Oh man, I see some tough comments out there. Yeah. And thank you for the love, my friends. I really appreciate that. It's very appreciated. So thank you. All right. So let's see who is here and joining us on the day. What a lovely Tuesday it has been. And members, stick around. We'll do an after party and see who else is joining us on the day. I saw some great donos come in. Membos, stick around. Got some new membos coming in. What a lovely day. Here's Trump. Here's the president. President Trump also found some seashells by the seashore. It says Sucker, aka sucker. That's not a true threat. That's just a true reality. And Comey, hopefully, is being arrested soon. We also did some metal detecting today with my brother Joey. Can you believe this? He found 2 buried treasures on the sea, right by the beach. 2 buried treasures. And I was going to see if I can grab some photos real quick. So we got a metal detector, and Joey was metal detecting away. Let me see if I can get a metal detection picture. Okay, here's Joey digging in for buried treasure right here. And he found some. He found some buried treasure. There's my brother Joey right there. He found some amazing buried treasure out on the beach, including the diamond from Titanic. Right there. Dun, 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 dun. He found buried treasure, man. So he's like a treasure hunter now. He's pretty good at it. So we had a lot of fun today. Anyways, that's what that's about. Hey, what's going on? Rubos shared this one. Not a fan of King Chucky. Magna Carta is cited in at least 160 Supreme Court cases. He stabbed Trump in the back. Did the Dems know he was going to say this? Ooh, I didn't catch that one. So the King of England, I can't even believe they have a king still. Like, what the hell is that? Why do you have kings over there? Monarchy, ridiculous. Shout out Rubos. So he was kind of needling Trump today. Wild. That's insulting. Tim Jake, what's up? Thanks for bringing in 5 new membos. Molo Deet in the house. We got Kansas girl coming in. Tenured nose in dough in the house. Nose in Ohio. Nurse in Ohio. Tenured nurse in Ohio. Wow. Like Ilhan right now. The Kumquat, welcome. And Krista Gauss, all membos. Shout out. Thank you, Tim Jake, for bringing in 5 new membo friends. Membo, stick around after the show, and we'll hang out for a little bit longer. I'll show you some more photos of my bro. Sandy, what do you make of the forfeiture notice? I think it might be about book sales. I think you're right. He did this while he was on book tour. Yeah, I was thinking book sales, or like the interviews that he was doing to talk about this. So he makes the threat. He talks about the interviews, or talks about it on the interviews. You know, did he make any money off his Instagram ads? Like, is he monetized on Instagram or something? Did he make any benefits by making the statement? I think book tour is the best idea of them all. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, it's a great comment. Mike Vrabel's love child. How to prove intent. Show the FBI charged similar crimes while he was FBI director, meaning he had to know that those seashells and what those numbers meant. Yeah, I wonder if those words were used in other threats. Like, has the FBI ever charged anybody else for saying 86 something? That's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Or does he know what that is? Like, did they use that in internal guidance? Did they use that in internal emails? FBI, daily briefing says somebody, Crips, 86, the Bloods, to use just a basic example. So he knows what they mean because you can see in his emails, he got these updates about that phrase. And presumably he read his emails, right? Or should have. Good to see you, Mike Vrabel's love child. Shout out. Hey, Gauntlet, can the charge last year still be brought back? The lying to Congress charge? So I think that's on appeal right now. So they're appealing the disqualification of Lindsey Halligan. So we'll see where that one goes. If they win the appeal, I think it relates back to the original charging date. The problem with that one is the statute of limitations expired. His testimony to Congress was, I think, like in 21 or something. So it was like 5 years before they got those charges filed, right before the statute of limitations expired. So if not, if the original charging date is void because it was like, you can't refile it, in other words, I would think that's going to be his main defense. So if they win on appeal, that case will come back. If they lose on appeal, probably unlikely that they charge him again, unless it's part of a grand conspiracy case, in which the grand conspiracy you can pick up from the most recent overt action. So whatever they did recently that isn't overt action in furtherance of the conspiracy will then go all the way back and encompass all of the testimony, even testimony from like Peter Strzok and those guys back in the aftermath of Trump's first term, would be my argument. Hey, King of Biltong is here. Try our selection of Peri Peri Biltong. Great Biltong flavor with added mild heat, packed with B vitamins, creatine, iron, zinc, and more. Go to BiltongUSA.com, code Robert, and you can save 10% off. And it's going to be the best meat you've ever had. Hey, Rob says, James Comey is of the age. He's seen the TV series Get Smart. Crazy criminals were always out to get him. Maxwell Smart's agent number is 86. Oh, I never knew what 86 meant. Yeah, right, from Rob. I'm with you on that one, Rob. Sandy, they have to prove that he was the person that posted. He admitted so no problem there. If he arranged the shells as his wife said he arranged the shells? Then he knew it wasn't some obscure political message, but can his wife testify to what she told investigators? Spousal privilege? I didn't even realize his wife said he arranged the messages. Yeah, I mean, if they put her on the stand, I think those privileges are about internal communications. So like, how did she know that did she observe that? And if she testified to investigators about that, that's testifying about an observation, not about the internal, like the spousal privileges and marital privilege are meant to like if they were to say, did James Comey tell you, think of it like attorney-client privilege. Like, did James Comey tell you that he arranged those shells? And she could say, yes, that's what he told me. And I can testify to that. Like if she wasn't his wife, it was just some neighbor. They bring the neighbor in. Neighbor can say, yeah, Comey told me that he made the seashell pattern. He wrote those numbers on the beach. Wife can say she can't reveal the internal communications within the marriage. But if she just saw it, if she saw him out there just placing those, that's a little different analysis. But yeah, I think they could invoke something to prevent the testifying, to prevent the testimony. But I didn't even realize that she said that. I didn't see that anywhere, Sandy. So thank you for that detail. I'll have to look into that one. Hey, what's going on? Biology always wins. What's up? Biology always wins. Thank you for bringing in 5 more membos. Michelle Jones is coming in. Bolt Carriers, welcome. Obtuse Moose. Jukes 007 is here. Rooster Coburn in the house. And welcome aboard. Very great to have you here. Sandy says, Comey is now responding to this. Is it a Comey video? I don't think we got it in us to watch a Comey video. All right, it's a Comey video. That's 38 seconds. All right, so we got it in us. Let's take a look. Here he does these little videos.
Well, they're back. This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago.
I'm in North Carolina right now.
The end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith.
Okay. Keep the faith, well, I guess, from a man who probably has no faith at all. I don't know. Hey, Mountain Goddess, what's going on? Hey, speaking of Mountain Goddess, that might be you right there. Perfect. Mountain Goddess, I've always...
The stream dropped on locals, just so you know. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but...
Like, drop completely?
Like, it's got a spinning wheel, and it dropped on Substack, but you're still up on YouTube.
I
don't think there's anything you can do about it, but just telling you.
Thank you, baby. My beautiful wife is alerting me that we may have dropped on locals and on Substack. Well, that's not good. All right. I don't know if I can do anything about that. Let me just do a refresh over here. Are we still live on locals? Let me know. Give us a thumbs up or a shout out if we're over there. All right, so friends, thank you. Sorry about that technical problem, if that happened. Don't know exactly what's going on. I think we're still good on YouTube, if we're coming in right. All right, so thank you, Mountain Goddess. Okay, we'll make sure we get these then. Mountain Goddess. I've always wondered what type of food the Feeding Our Future were supposedly serving. Somali food? Ugh. You saw what Jacob Frey did when he ate a bowl of whatever that was, cat or something. American-born and raised children wouldn't eat that. Was it only for Somali children or every race of children? What about the daycares? Was it for all? Yeah, I don't know. I saw that Jacob Frey eating that bowl of something and his... Even the other Somalian next to him was like, he's actually eating it. This is crazy. It took me 18 years to warm up to that. So it's a good question. I think the truth is there weren't really any children there at all. So they could eat whatever they want because they're probably at home living large off the billions of dollars they stole, probably ordering DoorDash in. Mountain Goddess, thank you for the very nice dono. We appreciate that. I don't know what Feeding Our Future was doing. We read some of the articles here, the internal analysis from the inspectors who said that we were trying to run the problems up the chain of command and nobody cared at all. So thank you, Mountain Goddess. Spuds, but these go to World War XI. Yeah, that's from 11 Hand Omar. Thank you, Spuds. Rob, Trump is pushing for the 2020 election to be invalidated if the Southern Poverty Law Center is found guilty. Well, they're one cog in the wheel, no doubt. The hoax, the Charlottesville hoax, may have been entirely funded by them, which was the whole reason that Joe Biden said he ran. And then they said Trump likes Nazis and Trump's a racist and all the things. So, yeah, the SPLC is responsible for a lot of electoral nudging in one direction. Thank you, Rob. Hey, what's up? 50 months as a membo. Oh my gosh, that's a long time. Ray K. Man, thanks for being here so long. What a long time that is. It's like back towards the origins of COVID. That's like the COVID days, man. Thank you, Ray K. Really appreciate that, brother. Thank you for supporting us so long. Hey, Crooked Pharma Pam is out. Hope this is the start. Me too, Ray K. Me too. It feels like, man, there's a whole new energy out there. We've had a lot of action recently. And to Cash's credit, he said, and Cash works for the DOJ ultimately, but he said there are indictments coming soon. We covered that last week. And then lo and behold, boom, indictments drop. What a beautiful thing. Thank you, Ray K. Once again, 50 months. That's a long time, brother. We appreciate that. Cecil says, hey, thanks for the raid. Cecil says over on Rumble. TW Wright says, hope it doesn't end up 5 years in jail. Hope it doesn't end up 5 years in jail. Sure sounds like mens rea to me. I think you're right about that. Yeah, you're talking about the COVID indictment where they say, hopefully we have, a better future and we don't go to prison for this. In other words, we know what we're doing is illegal and we're just going to continue to do it because we think that no one's going to investigate us. Well, fortunately, Trump won again and now it's happening. Gauntlet KI. Need to find out who's advising to get around FOIA. Well, that woman's name, we didn't get into it too much, is courtesy of L, some B I know on X, says the FOIA lady was Margaret Moore. So she posted this one. She's amazing. If you're not following her, some B I know is amazing. Check it out. Spell out the word. And yeah, she was the one who was doing all the FOIA stuff, Miss Margaret Moore. Okay, so that's who might be next. But she's not probably co-conspirator 1 or 2. But yeah, that's the name. That's the name. Thank you, Gauntlet. Hey, Real Norman Smith, The Ballad of Lying, Cheating and Stealing, James Comey. Yeah, could write a whole song about that. Lying, cheating, stealing, James Comey. Hey, what's up, Sharpie Guy? It's never again Taco Tuesday, Rob, as in fencing or sword fighting. It's forever more Touche Tuesday. Not to be akin to... douche, it's touche now. Touche, lefty D-bags. 100% right, Rob. Hugs all around, watchers. Love y'all. Love you back, Sharpie Guy. Thanks for the fun comment. Touche, lefty D-bags. Love it. All right. Hey, psychological projectionist. The irony of no kings is King Charles has no real power. His speech will have been written or at least approved by PM Sir Keir Starmer. Do you realize they had no king's protests in England where they literally have a king? And they weren't talking about him. They were talking about Trump, who is not a king. He sat down with CBS's Maniac. He's shredded into bits if you missed that one. Thank you, psychological projectionist. Are you over there? in England, in the UK? Shout out. Thank you for the dono. And then the king comes over, and apparently all the Democrats, according to the Rubos, are standing up clapping him. Checks and balances. Thank you, psychological projectionist. Hey, Rob, I noticed both parties all stood while the king spoke. So 2 things. 1, Democrats don't stand only because it was Trump. And 2, what happens to no kings? They stood for a king. Thank you for that, Rob. Hey, Jim, is streaming today? All right, so we can't, when we do members only after parties, we can't send you off to Jim. We can only send you over to our members only after party. From the members only after party, we can then send you to Jim. So I would encourage you, go check out Jim's channel. And it's at Jim Tells You. He went through, there's this like AI banning thing going on YouTube. Fortunately, Jim is back. So make sure you go send him some love. And we see him very soon. So Jim Tells You is where people will head on over. I think he's about to kick off live. But friends, what a lovely stream it has been. We're going to hang out. We're going to see if Locals is still working. Don't know why it wouldn't be. But sometimes it doesn't work. But we'll head over there for our members only after party. If you're a membo, definitely stick around on YouTube. It should auto-magically transfer you into our members only after party. And we'll debrief and say what else is up. We'll see what else is up. Hey, Satellite Boy, just thought of something I had forgotten to say. Oh, man. I hate when that happens. Satellite Boy, good to see you on X. John, what's up? Hey, Rob, I am sure they can also say that Comey was calling on the assassination to his followers. Yeah. Yeah, so it's, in other words, kind of directing the threat towards the president. If he's not going to do it himself, it's encouraging somebody else to do it and giving the cover of a former FBI director to say this is an appropriate concept. Disgusting. Mountain Goddess. Hey, thank you, Mountain Goddess, for becoming a membo. Hopefully stick around and we see you in just a little bit. We'll debrief. I got some more Joey pictures to share. TW56AZ. Virginia Supreme Court killed the gerrymander. Did they kill it completely? I did see that there was an order. Like did they write an order already? I did see the they refused to put a stay on it today, but I don't know if that was the final order. So they asked for a stay so that they could certify the election by this Friday. That doesn't sound like it's going to happen. So that might lead to the killing of the gerrymander, but I don't know if we're there exactly yet. But I'm not positive because we haven't seen anything in about 2.5 hours since we started this. But thank you, TW56AZ in the house. You're also a membo. Hopefully you stick around for a little bit in the after party. And we'll come back and see what else is cooking. But my friends, it's been a lovely stream. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. Thank you for subscribing if you're out there and you haven't done that already, because we don't ever want to miss you again. We'd also love it if you like this video. On the way out, go check out Jim's channel or become a membo. Join us in the members only after party. YouTube friends, just hang tight. It should automatically transfer you. Locals friends, we'll see you in a bit if you hang tight as well. And right on, gal, 31 months as a membo. Rob, take the ferry system home and travel through OBX. Take the ferry system home from North Carolina? What do we do with the car? Does it get on the ferry? Take you back to DC? Sounds interesting. It's not a bad idea, Right On Gal. Amazing. All right. So thank you, Right On Gal, for the dono. 31 months as a membo. Thanks for being with us for 31 months as well. You're amazing. We love you for that. All right. So we'll pause here, friends. It's a lovely Tuesday. We're coming back tomorrow. Same time, same place. We'll get into it again. And I would love a whole new set of indictments, man. Could you imagine? It's been beautiful. All right. So, friends, thanks once again. We're going to pause here for the night. Membos, stick around. Before we wrap, want to thank our awesome mods and meme smiths. Thank you so much to Muffin Rando. We got Donut Mind Me in the house. We got John. We got K Bean. We got Carrie B. We got Neuro D. We got Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda. I think that's it. All modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and beautiful. Thank you, friends. And thank you once again for subbing up. We'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the script